Today we are talking to Christina Smith, the director of Astrive Advocacy. Christina has been an advocate for 20 years and has served on numerous boards and committees. Christina is originally from Parkersburg but moved to Belleville with her husband Tim and has two daughters, Olivia and Anna. Thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So before we start with talking about the House bill, tell us about Astrive and what it is and what it does.
So Astrive Advocacy is a nonprofit. We are a 501c3 organization that has, we actually focus on providing advocacy, providing trainings, advocacy supports, trainings for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. Primarily right now, we've been focusing on obviously legislative advocacy issues, which we're going to talk about today, but also special education advocacy, systems advocacy, and working with families and individuals from a young age through their adult life to make sure that they understand the importance of having their voice heard and being able to provide them with the skills and knowledge and supports that they need to be able to advocate on their own. It's been around, Astrive Advocacy has actually been around for around 4 years now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And if self-advocates want to visit the website, where would they go to?
So the website for Astrive Advocacy is www.astrive.org. And I believe that you do have that up on the screen. And
yes, I do.
I know that today we are going to be talking about supported decision making and about a House bill that's actually been introduced. But as Morgan is actually scrolling through the screen, I want to make sure that you all do see that in the middle part of the homepage, there is a section on supported decision making. And if you click on that graphic right there, that will take you to the entire, there we go. That will actually take you to the supported decision making portion of the website. And if you scroll on down just a little bit, Morgan, we can actually see all of these icons right here are documents. So you can go print off. Some of them are fillable. There are actually two different versions. There are fillable versions, and there are versions that you can actually print off and fill in. And then there are agreements, and there are documents that are in easy read versions, and there are checklists and some other documents that those who support individuals with disabilities may want to take a look at. So it really is fairly comprehensive, and it's growing every day as we do move this initiative along. So on the left-hand side of the screen, as I'm looking at the screen, on the left-hand side, there are links to other studies and other states and a lot of information on there that you can click on and get information on this very important topic.
Looks like there's a bunch of information to go on there. So that would be definitely the place to get more information.
Right.
All right, so let's get started. So tell us about House Bill 2505 and why is it so important?
Okay, and I am so excited to be able to talk about this. House Bill 2505 is actually a piece of legislation that was introduced by a Delegate Vernon Criss, and we are thrilled because we've actually worked on this for a couple of years. Astrive Advocacy is collaborating with the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council and many other entities across the state. So we've been working on it for a couple of years, and unfortunately kind of got a little bit hijacked by COVID because we had wanted it, we were working on it a couple of years ago. But that being said, we're thrilled that it has been introduced today. And House Bill 2505 actually creates the Supported Decision-Making Act. And, there's a lot of questions about what does that mean and how does that work with guardianship and what is it as an alternative to guardianship. And the reason that we find that this is so important is that in code already, in West Virginia code already, when you look at the West Virginia's Guardianship and Conservatorship Act, it already states in West Virginia code that the court shall consider the most least restrictive option. So they should already be doing those things and looking for other alternatives to guardianship and really, really trying to get in and determine whether an individual with an intellectual and developmental disability or other type of disability that someone has submitted paperwork to become their guardian, we really want before that act is acted upon, before that step is taken to become the guardian over someone or to remove their rights completely by having someone appointed as their guardian, you want to make sure that they truly do need a guardian and they don't need another set of supports that would allow them to maintain their rights. And that's what supported decision-making does. There are 12 other states that actually have already adopted supported decision-making into law as an alternative formally recognized in the court system. And so West Virginia is just on track right now. That's what we're working to do, is get this into law as an official and formally recognized document and plan that people can utilize to take to their doctors or take to their teachers or take to their, in their community or their provider if they're with an agency. And it's actually recognized as something, as a document that should be recognized and respected and followed, just like a guardianship agreement would be followed in a court of law.
So how does supported decision-making work?
So supported decision-making, the beauty of supported decision-making is that it really puts the person with the disability in the middle of making their choices. And it puts the person with the disability in the center. And we've all heard about person-centered planning over the years. And we know that that is supposed to be being done. And we know that there have been many trainings on how agencies and entities and organizations are supposed to do that. But unfortunately, it's not. It's a reality that it doesn't always work as it's supposed to, because some people may think that although an individual with a disability has a desire or a wish or, wants something or expresses their need for something, someone else many times always thinks that they know better. And that's just the reality of what we live. So supported decision-making takes that back and takes puts the person at the center. And the beauty of supported decision-making and making a formal agreement is that it's a fluid document. You may have a supported decision-making team of support that is selected by the individual, because a supported decision-making is, it's a process by which a person with a disability can use the relationships that they have already, relationships that they've developed over the years. It may not always be a case manager. It may not always be a parent. It may be, someone in the community that has always stepped up and helped support that person and has always helped them try to achieve their dreams and goals and understands what they want and how they need to get it. It might be, staff or volunteers or other advocates. So supported decision-making is a very, very individualized program. It's a very individualized plan where the person with the disability gets to determine who those team members are, gets to say how much involvement they want them to have, gets to say, if you don't agree with me and you understand what I need and you have expressed your concerns, but you're not going to help support me in what I want and need, then bye-bye. I don't want you on my team anymore. And that's, in the world that we're in today and in the disability service provider world that we live in today, unfortunately, there are many times personality conflicts. There are many times folks who are put in a person's life to provide very, very specific supports. And that individual with the disability may not agree with them and may not know them and may not really, they may not be a positive influence or a positive support. And on the flip side, there are people who, enter into a person's life as a paid support, and they develop lifelong friendships and truly, truly will move mountains to advocate for the needs and wants and desires of that person. So that's what is so incredible about the supported decision-making, because the supported decision-making team that a person may have as a young adult, after they have, depending on, where they live or what their season of life they're in, that team may change because the person's needs change and the person's wants and wishes and desires change. So on the flip side of that, once a person is assigned a guardian, the chances of ever having that reversed or having being able to communicate and change that guardian's mind on many things, that can be very difficult, especially in the court system. So this keeps that a person from having to become deemed incapacitated and deemed not being able to incompetent, because that's what guardianship does. It puts the control back in the person with the disability's hands and allows the supports that they choose to formally be recognized as supports to help them communicate with others, to help them make decisions, to help them understand what their decisions, what the outcomes of their decisions may be and how that may impact their lives. So.
And that's part of the Self-Advocate Bill of Rights, that you have the right to choose your support system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Morgan, if I could say one more thing too about, I should have said this at the beginning. There's a couple of points I wanted to make about, we know that people have guardians, and I've talked about some things that maybe guardianship may not be doing appropriately. But what I want to say is, if you already have a guardian, if you're an individual that has a guardian and your guardian is working out and everything is great in that relationship, and they are truly looking at what you want and need and making and advocating for you on your behalf, then, or if you are the guardian of an individual already in the court system, I'm not here to say that you're a bad guy, or that you have to run right out and file a new supported decision-making document. But what we do want folks to know is, even if that guardianship agreement is working, let's just say that it's, it really is a very successful and a very appropriate relationship, and that is going great, and the person's rights, the person with the disability's rights are not being violated, and they are not being abused or neglected or anything like that, then these supported decision-making tools can still be used to help. The tools are amazing. There's a lot of questionnaires and information gathering and a lot of detail that even if a person does has a guardian appointed to them, they can still use all of these tools to help that relationship be a better relationship and help move them on into different seasons of their lives, so that everyone understands what their roles are and what they are truly looking at the individual as a person first, as a person who wants relationships, and they do have dreams, and they do have needs, and they do have, whatever those wants and desires and needs are, that the team, whether it's a guardianship or whether it's a supported decision-making team, is truly always considering that person first. And the other thing that we hear a lot is, oh, my goodness, they can't communicate verbally, therefore they can never communicate and let us know what they want and make a decision. And you and I both know that that's not accurate. Just because a person has a disability, even a significant disability, doesn't mean that they can't communicate. It may not be in the form that others do. Maybe it's not verbally, but if the team understands how that person communicates, then they most definitely can express their wishes. So we hear a lot, oh, if you have an IQ of this, then you must have a guardian. Oh, if you can't communicate verbally, then you've got to have a guardian. Oh, if there are many reasons that people get guardianship over another person and or seek guardianship over another person. And we just want to make sure that the appropriate questions are being asked, that those the people who are applying for guardianship are vetted appropriately, and that it's not just an assumption because someone has a disability that they have to have a guardian.
So will this mean that guardianship won't be an option anymore?
Absolutely not. That is not what that means. What it means is, as I stated back in the very beginning of this session, when I quoted the West Virginia's conservative Guardianship and Conservatorship Act, there is already an alternative option that should be being considered within the court systems. And we know, those of us working on this bill, the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council, as I said earlier, myself and some other entities, Disability Rights of West Virginia. I mean, there are many entities that are working on this. And we know that guardianship is not going to be removed from code at all. But because within the court systems, they don't understand many times what those alternatives are. So we want to make sure that within West Virginia code and within West Virginia law, that it is established that if someone brings a formalized, and when I say formalized, I mean it needs to be notarized. All of the people who are participants would have to sign an agreement. It's not just a very simple document it's a simple document to complete with all of the people at the table. But it's a serious document. So and it does have some controls in it so that, the individual with the disability knows that the people on the team, they have agreed to be there and they do have a role to play. And if they don't fulfill that, then they can be asked to leave the team. So supported decision-making in this act will just create the option for this to be recognized as an alternative to guardianship, but it will be recognized by the courts. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes. So what if a person already has a guardian? How will this bill help them?
So, as I said just a little while ago, this bill will, while I'm just going to be completely honest, there are situations and we know several people across the state. It's not impossible, but it is difficult, I guess, more difficult than what we would want. Is that if an individual does determine that they don't want their guardian to be their guardian anymore for whatever reason, and there could be many reasons for that, they can petition the court to have their own rights restored. And if that individual with disability, supported decision-making and this concept didn't exist for a long time, but it hasn't made its way to West Virginia, until recently. Although they do have a guardian, there are times that are appropriate for an individual to go petition the court and say, I don't want my guardian to be my guardian anymore. I want to be my own guardian. I am an adult with a disability, and I have many of these tools that can help me be successful in the community, can help me communicate what I need with other people in the community. They can help me understand what people are telling me so I can make appropriately and informed decisions. So if a person with a disability already has a guardian and they feel the desire to become their own guardian again, then they can petition the courts and they can use this supported decision-making as a tool to convince the courts that they have what they need to be able to do it. And there is actually a precedent-setting case out there that was a young lady with Down syndrome, and she was the first person in the country that did this very thing. And the courts said, okay, as long as you have a supported decision-making agreement formally adopted and, it's complete, then we're going to allow you to prove that supported decision-making does help you be successful instead of granting guardianship to your parents. So went off the rails there for 1 second. But that is a situation where if a person with a disability wants to become their own guardian, they can use supported decision-making as that tool. But let's kind of circle back around to your question of if a person already has a guardian and they're okay with that, and that's working out, successfully for them, then both the individual with a disability and the person who is the guardian or people who are appointed as guardians, they can come to the website, and this will, as we move forward with getting this formalized, there will be other places that these documents will be housed. They can go pull these down and read through them and look at them and understand what decision-making means and what self-determination means. And, we talk about self-advocacy and self-determination, but self-determination is really supported decision-making, because it's knowing what you want, and you've got to many times they use the supported decision-making agreement as a tool to go after what they want and to have supporters around them helping them do that. Because we know that people who are self-determined are, they're healthier and they're more independent and they're more likely to have a job and they're more likely to be included meaningfully in their community. So we want the guardians to use these tools and these documents to also help them when they are communicating with and creating plans and creating, programming and those things for their loved one or individual with a disability. So, and it's not just, it can be used in employment. It can be used in transition in high school. We believe absolutely that, and we've approached the education system on making sure that throughout the transition process, students are given resources and they're taught the importance of decision making, because they shouldn't, it's not a reality to think that just because they're graduating from high school that they understand how to make appropriate decisions. So we want them to be taught this not just in their senior year, but all the way through school, and then really working on it from that ninth grade on, age 14 on, the transition period on. So, supported decision-making can be used, I already said, in employment and just in community, living in the community, where they live, what setting are they living in? And there are just so many ways that this document can be, can start out very small. And then as the years go on or the needs increase or situations change, the document can be revised and applied to that season of that person's life. And that's not something that can happen with a guardianship agreement.
So how many other states have laws about supported decision-making?
That's a great question. So right now, while there are many states that are working on some supported decision-making in some way, shape, or form, there are 12 other states that actually have supported decision-making laws that have been passed that formally recognize supported decision-making as an alternative to guardianship. And as I referenced earlier, over on the left-hand side of the screen, if you do go to the website, on the left-hand side of the screen, I believe it's on the left-hand side of the screen. If it's not, when I get off here, I'll make sure it's on the left-hand side of the screen. There are links to some other websites. There are some national resources that actually will take you through all to the other states, that there are national agencies that are working specifically on supported decision making. And they have links to, if you're just interested, to go out and kind of look at the path that other states have had to take, or if you're interested in seeing, some other types of agreements and things like that, you can look at some of those other links, or you can just go to Google and Google supported decision making, and you would be surprised at the number of resources that pop up. So every state is different. I will say, though, I should have said this already. This is not, although 12 other states have adopted legislation to make create their supported decision-making formally in their states, there are many agencies that are not specific to disability that have endorsed supported decision-making and have strongly encouraged states to make sure that it is recognized. The American Bar Association, in, I believe, 2017, the American Bar Association, made a statement and said, please, sent it out to the states and said, please consider supported decision-making. The ARC of the United States has been a huge supporter of supported decision making. Those are just a couple that come to mind off the top of my head. The U.S. Department of Education. So there are many other entities that are not just disability specific that endorse and support and want to see supported decision making rolled out because they know that it's what's best for many people who are unnecessarily having their rights taken away from them through the court systems. And to be deemed incompetent and incapacitated, those are the two key words that must be established for a person to have another person be appointed their guardian. And if you go through a court system and they deem a person incapacitated or incompetent of making any decisions, then to approach them and reverse that, it's very difficult, if not impossible, many times.
So could you give a good suggestion on what wording should be used? Like when advocates say it when they talk to their legislators, should they be wording it? How should they say it?
How should they say supported decision making? Or let me talk quickly about the fact sheet, because I think that would help there. And you know what? I don't think I have actually posted the fact sheet on this page, but I will definitely do that shortly. I'm sure that I did not, because we just had Disability Advocacy Days at the Capitol and a couple of weeks ago, and I did not go out and actually post this. There is a talking points, a supported decision-making talking points, and it actually has House Bill 2505 because that's the current bill that has been introduced. It is set to go to education next, we believe. We do have a couple of little tweaks that we want to have changed before it moves forward, but we're working on those things from our end, from a legislative advocacy end. But the beauty about the supported decision-making talking points is that it kind of takes you through several of these key points that if you're talking to a legislator, you can tell them kind of the background, like, there's the question about why is it important? And I'm looking at the fact sheet right now. The fact sheet says specifically, it enables individuals with disabilities and their elders who may require assistance to make their own decisions with support instead of having someone else, usually a guardian, make decisions for them. That's the other piece I didn't say. Many, in addition to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, those individuals who are aging, who are elders, they are people who are also at risk of having guardians who do not always have their best interest in mind. So supported decision-making documents for that category of individuals is also very important. But I also want to direct you, and you can see on the screen, if you scroll down, there is a sample of this, and that is in a PDF from right there, Morgan. It's the Choosing Individual Rights as Alternative to Guardianship. And if you look at that document, that actually has a picture of Anna right there. There you go. That has a picture of Anna, and I'm showing it to you on the screen as well. And this one has actually been updated because that form says that she was 19 and she's actually 20 now. You all are welcome to take this document, and if anybody wants it in Word form so you can edit it, and you would want to put your own picture down here and do a little quote about why decision-making is important to you, I would be glad to send that out. We know, I know you know, that telling your personal story and telling a legislator why something they're working on is going to impact your life or my life or how it's impacted one of my loved ones, that really has a lot of weight to it. So when we go to see legislators, so Anna has gone with us, and for those that don't know Anna and don't know me, Anna is my youngest daughter who is 20. She's almost 21 now. So if you all would like to personalize this form, I would send it out to you, and I can forward that to you all. And you can, I don't know if you can do a link under the video or however you want to handle that, but That really is important, because what this page does, so there's a combination of the pages that we distribute to legislators. So we have the talking points, and then on the back of on the back of the talking points and the fact sheet that we have, there is also another page on the back that tells, and that's not on the website yet, Morgan, but we also have a lot of questions, which we've covered today, about how is supported decision-making different from guardianship? Who makes the decisions? What are the protections that are there for people against abuse and neglect? All of those things. So there's a nice little chart on the back of that fact sheet also that addresses some of those questions that legislators might have. Okay, so we've got why should they do it? And with a picture and a personal story, some statistics. Then we have the fact sheet that really tells about supported decision-making. And on the back of that, there is the questions that come up a lot of times for people who aren't familiar with what the two would be, the differences between the two.
Absolutely, yes. So is there anything else that you would like to add?
I think I've covered a lot. I will tell you that on this website, as well as the DD Council website, we do frequently do trainings on futures planning, alternatives to guardianship, supported decision making. So just watch the Facebook pages and the websites, and we always do a lot. That really, I know we've kind of done a snapshot of what just is supported decision making, but there are many other tools that go into alternatives and other ways to support people with disabilities in their decision making, even well before the age of 18, but before they turn 18 and that decision is made. We do, just one last note on that age of majority. One issue that we are really trying to address, and I already talked about education and special education and during the transition, but we do have a lot of educators who are miscommunicating guardianship within that transition IEP when the child turns 18. They flat out are telling parents that they must get guardianship at the age of 18, and that is absolutely 100% incorrect. They do not have to get guardianship. So we would prefer that they come to a training or reach out to get information on, the whys and the hows and what the other alternatives are prior to making that and taking that step. And that's a whole other training in itself. But I would strongly encourage, and while the legislative issue with the House bill is critical from a time perspective right now, I would love to, have anyone who's watching, both individuals with disabilities and the families and people in the community and agency representatives to understand what supported decision making is and how this can be used to help those they are supporting in the community, because there's great tools and it's not cookie cutter. There are pieces that might work for one person and others that may not. So anyway, that's kind of where we are with that, but just a lot of great information. And I know I just gave you a bunch of, that's a lot to absorb. If it's the first time you're hearing about it, but the bottom line is, there are other ways that people can be supported, and we want them to be recognized. And many of them are already being done in families, but there's just no paper agreement to say that it's happening. And that's what we want to make sure families and others who are supporting individuals understand.
All right, perfect. We've been talking to Christina Smith today, who is the director of Astrive Advocacy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You are so very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.